I think we're here, Matt.
Oh, this is it?
I think.
Okay.
I don't know. It's always a little nebulous. Sam does a great job running the boards, and Sam just texted me that we're live. So that's the highly technical.
Apparently, we're live.
That's the highly technical. Yeah. So, if you haven't already noticed, we're not in my shop tonight. We're in Matt's shop, and we're going to jump into this in just a second. As always, I'm going to start out by thanking Titebond, who sponsors our live events and underwrites them. So that, look at you, very good, to keep these events free for you. Right now I was going to introduce you, and you're wandering around.
Oh, I thought we were putting up the, your sponsor stuff.
All right, very nice.
I'm a team player.
Team player, great job. So, Matt and I live about an hour apart, and Matt, why don't you give a little Matt background, a little Matt background about yourself? Yeah.
That's a thing now?
Now it is. I just made it a thing. So.
Yep, I'm Matt Crona. I make woodworking videos here in my two-car garage workshop. I have been woodworking for about 10 years, kind of pursuing, I guess, a lot more like fine furniture, that kind of stuff. I really enjoy the challenge of, I like more interesting joinery situations, and I like to use more different woods, I guess, things that you don't normally see, like you probably wouldn't go down to the lumber yard and buy. I like a lot of things that have a lot of distress, or maybe some kind of weird figure, or some knots in here and there. I enjoy incorporating that into my furniture as opposed to
And you're not considering it a defect, it's a feature.
Yes, I praise the defects. The defects I like a lot. So that's kind of my style as far as the furniture making goes. And another thing that I do a lot of is making my own lumber. So all of the furniture pieces that I make have all come from trees that I've harvested myself. And a lot of it's from the Minneapolis, St. Paul metro area. A lot of yard trees, urban lumber, things like that. Cut it all here in my backyard and dry it and bring it in here and make it a piece of furniture.
So is it, well, first do this before I forget. So if people want to see your videos, your webpage is?
mattcrona.com.
And your YouTube channel is?
Matt Crona is youtube.com/mcremona, I think. But you can just
But
search.
if you Google Matt Crona, not Google, if you search YouTube Matt Crona,
Yep,
they'll find your stuff.
Go to the website and link to the YouTube channel there, and my social media is there as well. So.
Okay, and Instagram, Matt Crona.
Yep, and Facebook, and Twitter.
So lots of places to, if you
Pinterest.
If you Google Matt Crona, spelled right there, you will find Matt in a variety of places. So then, with the furniture and the milling, is it safe to say that is it every stick of furniture you build comes out of stuff you cut? Have you ever in your life bought a sheet of plywood?
I did. When I built that outfeat table over there, I bought
the live edge slab table saw outfeat table that's over there. Beautiful live edge slab table saw outfeet table.
Yeah, that was the last time. That was in the spring. Yeah, it was like in April. That was the first time I had bought plywood in like, I don't know, 4 years maybe.
But so primarily the stuff, there's a beautiful piece of walnut furniture on the other side of the shop, and that whole piece is from stuff that you cut and dried.
That's from Minnetonka.
Nice.
And then
which is a suburb not too far from where we
live. The drawer sides, all of its vertical grain spruce came from an next door neighbor's front yard.
Wow.
So it's traveled pretty far to be here.
So in addition to cutting, in addition to Matt being a cut-up, is what I was going to say. I was trying to make a joke there. My brain wasn't spinning fast enough. In addition to him cutting his own stuff, he built his own sawmill. So
I did that, yep.
One of the doors we should open up here is this is a great opportunity. If you've got questions about milling lumber, drying lumber, unfortunately Matt's backyard is too dark this time of year for us to shoot outside, and it's also 21 degrees and snowing, so it'd be a really bad show for you folks. But there are stickered stacks everywhere. It's really amazing. So the great opportunity to ask Matt about any wood questions you have. Let me do one other promotional type thing. Well, a couple things. One, if you're watching on YouTube, keep in mind that I don't monitor those questions because it's too hard to go back and forth all the time from one. Could you bring one of those panel pieces as well? They're amazing. So, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to post a question, go to WWGOA.com and to the live video drop-down menu, and you'll find November there, and post your question there. We won't see your questions on the YouTube. The other thing on the GOA.com page, the landing page where you're watching, toward the bottom there is a thing that says handmade for the holidays. We've isolated a bunch of gift ideas that we think you might want to make in your shop. And we've got those as downloadable plans that you can grab. So if you scroll down and oddly enough click where it says download now, you can download those plans and get them for yourself. And we've got some questions queued up here already. But what an amazing piece of wood, if I can get this without too much lens flare here. So fill us in on this one. Crotch walnut, right?
Double crotch.
And this is going to end up being the panel. Is it a credenza? Is that what you're calling that piece of furniture, or what do you?
I call it a sideboard, but
okay.
credenza, buffet.
Doesn't look like a robot at all. Oh, sideboard. Okay, I get it.
I got your funny joke. Hey,
thanks for calling it funny. Don't encourage me.
It's a wide piece of furniture with the cabinet, 2 doors or 2 sets of doors and some drawers on top. Its intention is to go in a dining room. You store your tablecloths and your
fine silver,
your china, things like that.
And there's a whole set of these door panels. They're absolutely beautiful.
They're all sequential. So the case side, the 2 case sides and the 4 doors are all sequential from this section of the tree.
So one of the cool things about cutting the wood yourself is you can keep it sequence cut like that. So when you're ready to use it, if you're familiar with book matching on a really big scale, you can do this on a sawmill where when we take out this slab and the next one and the next one, every one of those pieces is book matched and butt matched to the one laying below it or above it. So cool feature. Oop.
Come on.
Breaking stuff. And can we mention the chainsaw of all chainsaws here? I'm guessing this is not the tree, or this is not the saw that you would take to the neighbor's yard to cut down the spruce tree.
I mean, you could if it had a big one.
If there were 8 of us, and you hold that end, please.
It's got the mounts for the second handle, so I can do it for you.
This is off your chainsaw mill, right?
Yep.
Is that?
This was my chainsaw mill chainsaw for a little while.
And you're setting the bar pretty high here.
Aha!
How long is the bar on this saw?
This one's 5.5 feet.
5.5 feet. All right. So let's jump in because there are actually a boatload of questions here. All right. One says, wife loves tables with epoxy centers.
Okay.
Done some smaller epoxy projects. Think I'm ready to step up my game. I have a log. This is your part of the question.
I have a log
that came out of a river, about 12 inches in diameter, 5 to 6 feet long, about as long as that bar. Not sure how long it was floating, but was dripping wet with no bark on it. I painted the ends. It's been air drying all summer, so in log form. I think that's probably an important part. With only slight checking so far, appears to be highly figured maple. I did some research. I believe it's silver maple, which is what we call soft maple, right?
It's one of the soft maples.
Okay.
Yep.
I've got a 14-inch bandsaw with a 5-inch riser, so I think that's
like 11 inches then?
Probably. Most risers are 6-inch on a 14 saw, but well, okay. I think this would be too much for my saw to handle. Considering slabbing it out with my chainsaw or hauling it to a nearby mill and paying to have it cut. Thinking 2 slabs from either side of the pith, so let's come back to that. Making a nearly book match coffee table, leaving the debarked live edges. Any tips or suggestions? So I want to touch on that pith part.
Okay.
So when you're milling, do you use the pith? Do you cut around the pith? What happens there?
It depends what you're trying to do, I guess. So if you're trying to get one board that's going to stay like connected and not split on you, you want to remove the pith. So either the best way to do it is to align your cut so as you're coming through, your kerf ends up straight down the pith, and you actually cut the pith out and turn it into sawdust.
So you're cutting right smack through the center of the log.
Center. So the pith becomes sawdust and becomes waste, and they don't have to worry about the pith being in there. The pith is the most unstable part of the tree. Just because of the way the tree dries, it's going to crack or split along that longitudinal axis of the pith. So depending on how much you care, I guess, and what the slab is going to become. In this case, you're working for a whole tabletop, so you don't want the board to split.
And a pretty small log, too.
Yeah.
12-inch log.
On the bigger stuff that I cut, honestly don't really care a whole lot, because a lot of times, even if the pith is still in there and you get that longitudinal split down the middle, because that board came from the center of the log, you can essentially get 2 quarter-sawn boards out of it. So if it splits later on, you just cut it in half and whatever. or you can cut the pith out while it's still, before it dries. You have two boards that are drying independently, or either leave them connected. Chances are it's going to split straight down the middle anyway, and you can disconnect them later on. This depends on how you want to handle material.
So for this one, 12-inch log. So I'm going to say, I mean, a 12-inch log, 6 feet long. I know when I do log lumber on the bandsaw, I'll do a 12-inch log, but about a 3-footer is about as much as I can arm wrestle up onto
It's not that light now.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think a bandsaw is the answer. I think getting it professionally cut is a good way to go. And then, I'm going to read this again, 2 slabs from either side of the pith. So I guess he didn't say how thick he wants to cut them, but working over under on the pith, 2 slabs from there, nearly book matched. All right, so I guess he's there. Any other tips? Well, I feel like, what's another, I mean, it's laying there wet now, but he needs to cut this, right?
Yeah, you have to cut it and get it drying. The sooner you do that, the sooner you can use it. It's not going to dry in log form like that.
And if it does, way more propensity for checking.
Absolutely.
As a full round.
And actual splits. You actually see splits. Instead of checks on the ends, you'll see splits along the whole length of the log as well, as that log is trying to dry and shrink and basically self-destruct.
So get the log cut as fast as you can. And then you've got a lot of stuff air drying out here. He doesn't say anything about the drying process, or she, but what do you allow for air drying in this part of the world?
Depends how fast I want to go. So if I want to kind of speed things up and how thick it is going to be, I guess. So for 4/4 lumber or 1-inch thick lumber that I want to kind of just get dried and get done with, I can just bring that right inside. I do a lot of my final drying inside to get down to final moisture content. So I can take wet lumber from the sawmill at 1 inch thick and bring it inside, and I try to get it targeted to 3 to 4 months of drying time inside, which
that's pretty fast.
Fully dried. I really try hard to slow it down too, because otherwise it dries too fast inside. You could probably dry it in like 2 months, but then it's way too brittle, and you get a lot more drying stress that way. So I found 3 to 4 months.
You have drying stress, or the wood has drying stress?
Both of them.
Or both. When it's both, it's really bad.
I have so much time invested in them at that point. Like,
and air dried final moisture content, you think could be what?
Indoors, so whatever your indoor equilibrium is. That's the nice thing about drying inside, is your furniture you make is going to go back into the house. So it's going to come to whatever the equilibrium moisture content of your house is. If you take your lumber and you stick it in your house to dry and you wait for it to be fully dried in your house, it's at equilibrium with whatever your furniture is going to be when it's done anyway.
So basically your recommendation is people who want to saw their own wood should turn their living room into an air drying.
Hey, I know a few people who have done that, and it is quite funny looking, and it makes me proud.
All right, Granville asks, what's a good way to get glue into 1/8 inch finger joints for glue up? Q-tip, popsicle stick?
I don't do many finger joints. I don't acid brush.
Acid brush would probably get it. When I'm doing fine stuff with an acid brush or a flex brush, which everybody sells now as glue brushes, but if you take a pair of scissors, you can cut the end. You don't have to keep them the shape they are, and you can make it into more of a chisel tip, and that'll let you get into finer spots. So that might be a solution for that. Here's another question: how to sharpen a wood scraper? I can't get a burr no matter how hard I try. Seems that the steel is too hard. Are you much of a scraper guy?
I have a variety of scrapers.
And you use a burnisher to put your edge on?
I do. The scraper is one of those like really weird, like the day you figure out how to get the burr on there in the way that works for you, it'll be like the happiest day of your life, and you'll live forever in bliss. That's like the biggest problem I think with the scrapers is that like you got to try a lot of different techniques, and a lot of times what I found honestly with watching people try and honestly struggle to sharpen it is they're applying too much pressure with the burnisher and they're completely rolling the edge over.
Yeah, I agree.
So you're not actually going to get a cutting hook. You're just rolling. If you think of the burr coming off the end of the, oh, you have this piece of paper here.
Here, let me move this big honking saw that you insisted on putting on the workbench.
It was on the floor. You wanted to put it up there. We need more props.
Can you see yourself in the little else? Do I need a Vanna White for you here?
Hey, can you? Yeah, that'd be great. So, let's say you're looking at a scraper from the end. So let me grab one here. So this is this view of the scraper from the end. So as your first kind of prep thing, you're getting the edges nice and squared up and polished, and yeah, you can see that. And then the next thing you'll be doing is kind of mushing the corners over to give yourself some kind of like thing. I don't know, like this drawing is terrible, but be something like that. The corners are kind of mushed over. That's your first thing. That's when you're running the burnisher across your square. And the next step after that is to angle it and then roll the burr over. So what you could be doing on the end is something like that, where your hook angle is so far down that in order for you for that hook to actually cut the wood, the scraper needs to be laying down like flat against the wood and pulled this way. You're never going to get an actual cut from that. So what you're kind of looking for the burr angle to be is something more like that, so that you can actually get a hook. Otherwise, you roll this thing over too much pressure, it's rolling back into itself. And
so there's a burr, it just can't cut.
Yeah, because the hook, the actual end of the burr is rolled back up and is touching the body of the scraper again. So for me, the biggest like pivotal moment was when I figured out that I need almost no pressure on the burnisher to put an actual hook on here, as opposed to really bearing down on that thing and rolling that thing as far and as hard as possible.
And I'm going to say, because he says, or Granville, he or she says, it seems that the steel is too hard. So you're probably onto something here, because that would give the feeling that I can't generate a burr,
yeah,
because the steel is too hard. And actually, you are generating a burr. You just can't. It's not a burr that you can use.
Too big.
So I tell people, if your scraper is in a vise, and this is 0, you only need to come down a couple of degrees,
yeah,
but no more than 5. Because like Matt said too, that the more aggressive you get this way, you have to tilt that scraper so far to get a cut. It's impossible to use. All right.
Don't give up. Keep trying.
It's a great tool to master, and we've got so when you're here on WWGOA.com, where you are now watching us, upper right hand corner there's a search window, and I know that I've done a couple videos and or articles on how to sharpen a scraper. So that information is on there. Do you have anything technique based on your?
Yep, I have a video on sharpening the rectangular scrapers, as well as sharpening whatever, like goosenecks and curved ones, and things that aren't rectangular.
Okay.
Those ones.
That'd be good, because I don't have any on the curved ones, because that's above my pay grade. I don't know how to do it. Any Minnesota meetups planned during your stay? Well, this isn't really a stay. We're both here. We both live here, but there's the one at Matt Collins.
Yeah, that's in what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, the weekend of the 17th. I thought I was going to be out of town, but I'm not. Okay. So if you're on Instagram, Matt Collins Designs. Well, no, who actually posted about that, though? It was not Matt, but someone else.
I followed too many people. Was it Jake?
Maybe Jake of all trades?
Yeah,
so
probably.
So do 2 things. On Instagram, look for Matt Collins Designs.
Matthew Collins.
Matthew Collins Designs.
Yeah.
Or Jake of all trades.
Some numbers.
And it's January 17th is the date at Matt Collins Place. And
November
17th at Matt Collins Place, and he's kind of close to Lakeville, sort of.
He's in like Northfield, Castle Rock area.
All right, so yes is the answer. Around the 17th of November. John says, when gluing up panels using 3 clamps, is there a proper order in tightening the clamps? I usually do the center one first.
I guess I don't really think about it.
Because then I can jig-jag with the ends as I'm tightening them. Where I feel like if I start on the outside and come in, and I have to shift those boards a little to get them aligned, it's impossible. But if I start if I start in the middle, I can align those, and then work to my right, get alignment, tighten, work to my right, alignment, tighten. Do you care? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I never thought about it. I just, whatever I'm closest to at the time is the one I start with.
Okay. 2 distinctly different answers. Start in the middle is the right one. No, I don't know.
If I happen to be standing in the middle at that time, that's when I would start
Then
with.
it's the right one.
Yes.
Okay. So my answer is start in the center, work your way up. I have a chance to get reclaimed 8x8 beams from a 1906 barn.
Nice.
The north side sags 2 feet on one end, but the beams appear to be fine. I'm taking the beams and 50% of the siding. Oh, any idea of projects I can do?
With a beam, you can always resaw it.
Yeah.
And you can make anything you can make with smaller stuff, or you can do, I don't know, big stuff. You can do like timber frame style furniture, like a bed.
Farmstead table.
Yeah, big old farmhouse table base kind of thing. And if you have enough of the beam, you can use some for the base and then resaw some for the top, for instance.
That would be cool.
Or if you wanted to, because it's 8x8, you could resaw into 4x4s and use it that way too. So you don't have like an 8x8 leg, you got a 4x4.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty massive leg.
You could put on the lathe and make a cool pedestal.
Yep.
Or something like that, for like a trestle table or for a pedestal table.
This is a great thing for like Pinterest and just scrolling through other people's ideas. And you could, so as a search word, you could use barnboard furniture, barnboard projects, and look for some inspiration that way for, don't try to reinvent the wheel. I'm big on stealing, borrowing ideas whenever I can. So I'd do a little Googling around. How long is the chainsaw? Well, I think we hit that 5 foot bar, no, 5.5 foot bar.
5.5 foot bar, so with the power head on there, it's like 7 feet long or something, I think.
That is a large and in charge chainsaw. Okay, question for you. Does it matter what wood I use for stickers? Some seem to stain the slab, which I'm going to jump right in here and say, when that happens, you get sticker shock.
You do!
All right.
You are the master of bad jokes.
Yes, that's true. So we're about to sticker our lumber. What's the best stuff to use for stickering?
The absolute best is to use the species that you cut.
So let's jump back, Jack, and just for people who don't know stickers, do you want to describe it or do you want to sketch it?
I can describe it.
Okay.
So when you have a bunch of boards you saw it, you don't want to be touching together so they can actually air dry or get some airflow in there, get the moisture out of there. So you want to space them apart a certain distance. The stickers are just little boards that are run perpendicular to the length of the boards to kind of just create a little sandwich, a little lasagna kind of thing, and it gives you some airflow.
So airflow.
Yep.
All right. So best choice of sticker material is whatever you're cutting.
Yeah. The best material, like the absolute guarantee, is to use whatever species you're stickering. So whatever boards you had just cut, same species. That's the best way to go. But honestly, I have never had a problem mixing species or mixing things around. I've never had one species stain another one. And I think the biggest thing, at least from my experiences, the stickers need to come from dried stock.
Oh, that's a great point.
That way, because if you're using wet lumber, touching wet lumber, it's just a good way for more moisture to be stuck in there, more mold to develop. Just things can kind of stain because there's no way for the airflow to get out or for the moisture to get out. But if you're using stuff that's been dried, touching the wet lumber, these stickers actually pull moisture from the slab that's touching or the lumber is touching, helping to dry that little area that's
Makes
covered.
sense. More chance for a chemical reaction if the sticker is still wet. So then for you, on your stickers, is it like those first couple slabs that come off that are slab wood are going to get turned into stickers?
I have a lot of them. They came from like, if you're cutting I don't know, like a weird log and you have some trimming cuts and some boards aren't full length and maybe they dried weird. A lot of mine honestly came from the years when I was selling a lot of lumber and the stuff that got kind of culled through and no one bought. You'd either get turned to cutting boards here in my shop or I'd cut up into stickers. So I have most of my stickers are cherry because I had a lot of boards that just got cut kind of weird. It was like the last board off the mill that was cut under 4/4, so like 7/8 or something. Nobody wanted to buy it. It had a split in the middle. No one wanted it.
So then experientially it's cool information that for you, dried cherry stickers have, to date, not produced sticker stain.
That is true.
On any of,
I have other ones too. I have like white oak stickers, I have cottonwood stickers, I got poplar stickers, I have pretty much like a variety of all different kinds of species, and I just, whatever I grab is the one that goes on that board.
Okay. I thought I had something else there, but I lost it.
Ah!
Okay. If you have a live edge slab, should you remove the bark or can you use epoxy or glue to keep it on?
This would be controversial.
Yeah, I mean my leaning is, when I'm doing a live edge thingy and it's got bark on it, I kind of pick at it a little bit, and if it starts to come off, then if it feels like it's fixing to come off, then I take it off. And this is at a point where it's dry. And if it's bone dry, you know, so air dried to whatever, 12%. If it's dry at that point and the bark is still well stuck on, it's probably going to stay on. Yes, no, maybe?
That was exactly what I was going to say. I thought you were going to have some crazy answer, like, I always take the bark off, I hate it.
16 penny nail, right through the bark, into the edge, it's going to stay on.
Well, this is exactly it. If the bark is like ridiculously attached and it's not going anywhere, it's not going to come off if it's been dried like that already. I have furniture that I did that on, and some people are like, oh, it's going to fall off. Still on there, still perfect, it hasn't changed. But if there's any separation between the wood and the bark, then you got to start worrying.
So what about then, if you have it, if it's just a little punky in one spot, and I've never done this, but I know people talk about it, you think you can effectively glue the bark back on if it's kind of starting to come off?
Yeah,
I mean, I guess you're gluing wood, so why not?
I have done that. Usually use like epoxy, since it'll be gap filling as well. And you won't have to worry about any kind of squeeze out stain or whatever.
So if you're going to do that, epoxy would be a better choice than yellow glue.
Yeah.
We're halfway through, so let's hit a couple things here. Yeah. Again, if you're, it goes crazy fast. If you're watching on YouTube, don't post your questions there because I don't monitor YouTube. I only monitor questions on WWGOA.com. So if you're on YouTube and you have a question, go to WWGOA.com and look for the lives, drop down menu, look for November, post your question there. Second, thanks to Titebond for sponsoring this and keeping it free. Fourth, just seeing who's paying attention. If you go right under where the questions are being posted, there's an opportunity there. You can download some free plans, right where it says download now. If you click on that, you'll get the plans. It's our gift to you, I guess, for Christmas. We've got some plans isolated there to help you make gifts for the holidays. You want to throw anything? Oh, let's do a shameless, you do a shameless promotion.
For what?
Yourself.
I am me. That is me. You can find me.
MattCrona.com. Lots of very cool stuff on Matt's website, MattCrona.com.
What kind of plans do you guys have in that kit package? Like what kind of
there's a pizza peel.
Those are fun.
I didn't know there was going to be a test, so I didn't study. A foosball table.
Make it up and see if anybody checks.
A tabletop foosball table. I think I did all of them, but I can't remember all of them. Over the years. It's developed over the years, so I don't remember them all.
A lot of good ones, though.
Russell says, hello from Emily, Minnesota. It's snowing there and 17 degrees. And Russell makes fishing rod handles. I've seen them. They're really cool. Beautiful. So he's busy turning those. All right, here's a great question. Best application for quarter-sawn and plain-sawn boards. I don't know about, I don't know. I guess I could think of a few best. So give us a hit on quarter-sawn versus plain-sawn. Advantages quarter-sawn offers.
A lot of people tell you it's the stability of that quarter-sawn grain orientation, but in reality, your plain-sawn lumber, it tends to be just as stable if it's dried well, I guess. So for me, quarter-sawn versus plain-sawn is more of a visual thing than a structural thing. And depends on the species, you're going to get different looks. So of course, oak's the most common quarter-sawn, or most popular against quarter-sawn. We have a lot of Rayfleck. All species have Rayfleck, but oak has a really huge, giant, prevalent Rayfleck. Cherry has Rayfleck, but it's like that big, and it looks kind of cool. So when I do doors usually, like on a cabinet, I try to do some kind of straight grain. Quarter-sawn I think looks pretty good on those. You gonna draw a picture?
You keep talking.
Okay. So usually quarter-sawn on the doors just because I like the look of that cleaner door frame, because I want to put something crazy for the panel. And that's going to be plain-sawn and probably going to be crotch or some kind of wood people would probably burn most of the time. So I want my visual, I guess the most visual aspect to be the panel and less about the doors. Look at you.
All right, so a couple things.
Is that a fingerprint?
Yeah. You didn't know, and there's going to be a DNA test later.
Oh, good.
All right, so plain-sawn, quarter-sawn. if you look at the end grain on plain-sawn, which is most of the stuff you end up running across, the annual rings are going this way across the end grain, and the reason I do this is what Matt was just talking about. That translates into typically this big cathedral or crown, like that, in the face of the piece. So in quarter-sawn, when you look at the end, and I always get quarter-sawn and rift-sawn mixed up, there's some angle here that is one and not the other.
Between 45, 60 and 90 is quarter-sawn, I think, and then
Under 60.
over between 60 and 90 is quarter-sawn, between like 30
40.
and 60 is rift. Basically it's 45 or 90.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
So quarter-sawn or rift-sawn, when the end grain looks like this, you have very straight grain up the face. So when I was running a commercial cabinet shop, and we did every Banana Republic store in the country, they spec'd cherry, quarter-sawn cherry. Everything in there had to be quarter-sawn cherry, and it wasn't because of amazing fleck or anything, because you don't see it, but it was because when you cover the entire inside of a huge retail store with cherry, they didn't want these big wild flame patterns. They wanted really straight grain in all the work. And I'm the same way. I tend to use it more aesthetically than structurally, where I want to get rid of that. I don't want to have the big flame patterns. How do you weight the ends of your boards above the end stickers to stop twisting that oak wants to do? I was thinking 6x6s on the bottom, and then using D-rings there with trucker straps over 2x4s on the top.
That works. I've done that in the past. Depends on how big the boards are, how wide they are, how big your stack is, things like that. The more weight, the more pressure you can get on top of the stack to hold and force the boards to be flat, the better off you're going to be. Drying lumber is kind of like steam bending. So if you put a board down on whatever surface you might put it on,
it's going to telegraph.
It's going to conform to whatever it happens to be, whatever the geometry is of that thing is underneath it. So if you have some kind of twist in your base, you're going to get twisted lumber because the lumber is going to be held down and conform to that.
And every layer in the lasagna is going to
you're going to have a whole crazy thing. The same thing is kind of true too. The higher up in the stack you get, the less weight there is on top of it because there's less layers above it. So adding some weight on top really helps to keep things pressed down, keep it in position so that as it dries it doesn't have a tendency to kind of do anything goofy.
So for you, I mean, what's the width capacity again on your saw? You just told me, and
6.5 feet.
So you can conceivably cut a 6.5 foot wide slab. Mm-hmm. Now you've got these huge slabs stacked. Trucker straps for you, or cinder blocks on top, or what's your most common weight?
A second log would be the best way.
That would work.
Honestly, I use ratchet straps. Those work pretty well. You can band the whole stack. I've done the beams with the straps on the ends. That works fine too. When you start getting into some really big stuff, you need a lot more weight. And the thing with the straps is you have to be out there tightening them because
as the wood shrinks,
the wood will shrink and you'll lose pressure, and you have to keep up with it. Well, at least for like the first 6 to 8 months or so. But ideally, I think if you can get 1,000 pounds on top of each sticker stack, that's kind of where you want to be, or more.
That's a lot of weight.
It's a ton per two.
Yeah, it's a ton of weight. All right. How long do a couple of oak burls take to dry? They are less than 12-inch diameter and still attached to the trunk.
Probably not going to dry.
No.
Are they still the trunk still connected to the ground?
Yeah, we don't know if it's still a tree or if it's a log.
I would cut it into whatever blank size you want to use them for, and allow them to dry that way. Because just like the first question we answered about the whole log, it's not going to dry as a whole burl like that. You really got to slice it up into something first, and then let those pieces dry independently. Otherwise, you'd be waiting for like a decade.
And then how long? Long time. If it's a 12-inch diameter. And if it's like for me, if you're looking at bowl stock here, I would turn that baby dripping wet green. I'd get it on the lathe as fast as I could. And so then if somebody wanted to make something out of that, I would slice it into 4/4 slabs or something, which you could probably do on a bandsaw.
Yeah,
to get it.
You cut it into whatever you're planning to use it for. So if you want to use it for, I don't know, turning, so you have different size turning blanks,
or
different size spindle blanks. If you want to do veneer, you can do veneer.
But don't cut it to veneer while it's green. Like, cut it to...
I mean, you can. You got to dry it specially because if it's so thin, it will potato chip on you. So you either cut it, let it potato chip, and then use a veneer softener to get it back in the flat. This is a whole nother thing, but basically you cut your burl to whatever. What do you want to make out of the burl? All right, work towards that.
So it's just like the log. Don't let it dry as a burl. Don't let it dry as a log.
Yep.
Machine it close to what you want to use it as, and then let it dry. And still sticker it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few 2-inch slabs, maple 2-inch slabs, about 6 inches, 6 feet long, that are somewhat spongy in places. I'd like, there's a couple typos. I think it says, I'd like to keep that in the slab. How should I finish the slab? So I think the real question is, we've got sponginess. How do we overcome punky spots in the wood?
Oh man.
Problem that can be solved with a product.
Friend. Yeah. These guys are your friend. The different companies make them, but it's called the Clear Penetrating Epoxy Sealer. It's an epoxy product, but it's like water. It has the viscosity of water, so it will absorb into anything that might be soft, and it will restructuralize it. It's basically a wood hardener. Like you might see that for like a route repair or whatever. So this works great.
So the one is Total Boat.
This is a
brand.
This one is like no VOC. It's less viscous. I haven't actually tried it. I bought it to try it, but all of the kind of like feedback about it is it's nice because it's not like it won't kill you, which is nice, but it's not as good as a penetrator. This stuff, it will kill you quickly.
Only if you breathe it.
Only if you breathe it for like 2 seconds, but it works amazingly well. So you kind of pick your poison.
So what do you think about on a real small scale? I've done this with CA glue.
Yeah.
So depending on how big a punky spot you're talking about.
I would assume for that you're talking about like something a little bigger than that, I guess.
So small scale, thin viscosity CA glue, cyanoacrylate. Big scale, then, I mean, and as a product, these are called what again? Penetrating
epoxies.
Okay. I've just retired and will soon have the opportunity to get tons of trees that will be cut down to make room for a new housing plan.
Tons of trees.
Which is like one tree. Tons is one tree. By pure weight, I'm saying.
Yes.
I'd like to start cutting my own lumber. As a novice with such an opportunity to get so many logs, do you think a Wood Miser LT15 would be a good investment? Matt makes it look so easy to be a Sawyer, Tom Sawyer, but I don't want to get overwhelmed by my own delusions. Any suggestions? So let's do a reality check. Just don't sweat the Wood Miser question yet. Just the reality of cutting all of your own lumber. Boatload of work, easy peasy. Where does this fall?
It's a lot of work. I mean, it's physically a lot of work. Even if you have equipment to do it, you're still offloading boards, you're still moving things around. It's a lot of work.
Trees are stupid heavy. I mean, a 2-foot diameter, 10-foot long cherry log is a couple thousand pounds, right? I mean,
it would be about 2,500 pounds, I think, somewhere around there. Which is, I mean, that's not a small amount of weight at all. So you have to deal with the fact that the logs are heavy, they're big, they can be difficult to move, especially if you're like me and you like things that are not so cylindrical. You like weird limby things which don't roll, so then you have to get a little more creative with it. But it's a lot of work, but if you enjoy being outside, you enjoy a little bit of physical labor, that's why I do it. I absolutely love getting off my butt because I sit around way too much. I think a lot of us do these days. A lot of people have desk jobs. At least when I started making my own lumber here in the yard, the reason I did it was because I sat at my desk for 8 hours working for someone else, and then I'm like, I want to go outside. I want to do something. I want to move around and get some exercise. So I started chainsaw milling just to kind of scratch that itch, and it kind of grew from there. But it is, I don't sugarcoat it. It's a lot of work.
A lot of work, and then you're going to wait for your lumber to dry. If you're air drying it, you're going to wait to get access to the wood. So first question is first answer is don't underestimate the amount of work it takes. I've got a chainsaw-based sawmill. I've got a log saw sawmill, and I don't cut anywhere near as much as Matt does. But but I'll agree, it's crazy rewarding to cut into a log, and when you get those first couple slabs off of there and you start looking at grain. I've cut a lot of elm, which grows like crazy in Wisconsin, and holy buckets! I had no idea it was such a beautiful, what an underutilized wood. So that part is really cool. Do you want to say anything about Wood-Mizer LT15, or I don't know anything about it?
Honestly, I think if you have like a lot of trees and you're not really sure what you want to do yet, hire someone to come in with a hydraulic portable mill. They'll make quick work of a lot of logs. You'll get a really good understanding of how much work this is going to be, if it's something you really want to do, because the LT15 is a manual mill as well. So you'll be flipping logs, rolling them, getting them on there manually. Yeah, I don't know, maybe you have a tractor or something that do a lot of work for you, but you will be a lot less productive than someone with an actual production mill will have for you. So it might be advantageous to at least hire someone for the day, get through 20 logs or so. You get some lumber stacked. You get a really good understanding of how sawmilling works with someone who's there that saws a lot. You can ask some questions.
In fact, maybe they sawzall.
Yeah, maybe they sawzall. Who knows? You're just on point today. Just on point.
Don't encourage me. I did a project where I turned a friend of mine, tree service, dropped off all these pine logs at my house, and the end goal was to floor the house. So pine logs became 4,000 board feet of planks, which became 2,500 square feet of tongue and groove flooring. But it just does circle back to what Matt was saying, which is I couldn't believe how inexpensive it was to pay a sawyer to come to my house with a sawmill and cut 4,000 board feet of lumber. There's no way it would have been worth me messing with investing in a sawmill. So I like Matt's idea of dip your toe in the water by paying somebody else a little bit of money first, and then seeing what you get.
Yeah, you'll learn a lot from that.
Donnie Carter says, howdy.
What's up, Donnie? What's going on?
And AJ is advocating the pizza peel, which is one of the gifts we've got available for you guys. Looking at your Instagram feed, you cut some big logs. How often do you change or sharpen your saw blade?
For the bigger stuff, I'll put a new blade on for every large log because the logs are more valuable than the blade, and it's not worth it to me to run a blade that's potentially dull or dulling through a log and have that blade wander and ruin that one cut. So I don't bother risking it. For me, blades are inexpensive and consumable. They're consumable just like sandpaper would be in the shop.
And so, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
So
you sharpened them, or you replaced them?
Well, I'll send them out for sharpening when they're actually dull. For the big logs, I put a fresh blade on for every big log, and then when I'm done with that log, that blade still has life in it. It'll still cut your 12-inch log, your 18-inch log just fine. It'll probably cut another 400 or 500 board feet of that. But when you're talking about cutting like 4 or 5 feet wide, you need that blade to be absolutely perfect and pristine.
And dead straight line from one side of the log to the other.
You don't want one of these things. You don't want some kind of weird thing going on like that. So on the smaller logs, it doesn't take as much, I don't know, precision, I guess, with the blade itself. It can be pulled through there even if the set's not proper or anything. It'll still make that cut just fine. But for something that wide, it's very demanding on a blade.
Okay. Russ says, so like in that crotch panel, what do you do to allow movement in crotch pieces like that? How do you treat that? So like the panel is X smaller than the frame.
I treat it the same as any other piece of wood. So that is, I think, a 1/16 smaller than the frame right now because we're kind of in like a transition period as far as most humid to most dry of the year. So that's 12 inches wide, so it'll probably move about, I don't know, 30 seconds or so.
From here it'll probably shrink because we're getting drier.
It'll shrink a little more from here, and then it'll pop back out to probably a little bit bigger than this in the summer.
Okay.
But the same, just because it's crotch.
So no special allowances just because it's crotch.
No.
Fred McIntyre says hi.
What's up, Fred? How you doing?
One of my sons and one of my sons-in-laws bought a very old house in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. They tore it down to put up some family vacation homes. Tearing it down, they got hundreds of board feet of over 100-year-old old-growth pine, actual 1 by 12 boards, 6 feet to 10 feet long. Took it back to Arizona, where most of my kids live, to sell. I think they're selling the wood, not the kids, but I'm not 100% sure. Any advice for them in selling it? I don't know. Craigslist?
Craigslist is good. Now they got the Facebook groups now too, so that could be a good way to go. Find some woodworkers that are interested in it. That's probably whatever.
Hundreds of board feet.
However you're going to find some woodworkers that want to buy it. Just like selling anything. Find your target market.
It's cool stuff, and there's a company near here that does, well, this is what they do for a living, is they tear down old buildings and then they resell. Very similar to what you're talking about here, that ponderosa pine 1x12s is one of their most common items. Beautiful stuff, and it's really cool. I've made a handful of projects with this, and at one point we took one of the boards, my kids and I, took one of the boards and looked at the annual rings on the end, and they were crazy tight, crazy tight. So from the pith to the edge of the board, we counted something like 220 rings. And the trees were cut in 1920. So then I'm doing the math, like, so this tree was a baby in 1700, but we're only looking at a 12-inch wide out of a ponderosa pine tree. So when the tree went down, it was probably way more than 200 years old. So just that that historical aspect of using that older lumber and when that tree was a baby is a pretty cool part of a project. And give us a, since I think I hit on it a little bit there, give us an old growth versus today's lumber kind of a thing. Like, I mean, your stuff, urban growing, is probably, it's not old growth, but
no, it's honestly, it's pretty fast growth because there's no competition for those trees. So they get pretty big pretty fast. So you get that bigger stuff. The grain, the rings aren't as close together as an old growth that had to kind of struggle for many years to get to its size, but
so the mystery with the thing that people seek, like a lot of instrument makers, luthiers, and Protestants, old growth because it's got tight rings. Because when those trees were babies, there were mature trees overshadowing them, so they grew really slowly. So in a year, the tree only grows a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So when you look at the annual rings, and geez, I think in that ponderosa pine, in an inch, there were like 20 rings. And if you go to Home Depot and buy a piece of pine today, in an inch, there's 6 rings. So that's
or less.
Or less. So part of what you get out of that is a really cool grain look on the face of the board.
Oh yeah, it's tight.
And that tight grain, part of what makes a good soundboard on a guitar is having that really tight grain in the soundboard. So that's part of what makes them sought after. Gary says he's sitting at Izzy's house listening to you guys.
All right.
That's pretty cool. What time we have? 15 minutes to go.
The first half hour went fast.
It did, and there's 350 people watching.
Really?
But we've
350 people.
We've run them out of questions. So
what?
Yeah, it's.
Sure? Is that working?
I'm scrolling. Let me jump over here.
Ah. We're on YouTube.
I did jump over to YouTube, see if there's anything here we should get after. Dennis says it sounds like the dust collector is on. It's not. It's like an air filter or something. It's
a little fan.
There is a little thing running.
It could have been the heater on the beginning.
Matt is the slab king.
All right.
That's nice.
I'll take it.
And this guy says George is the pun king. So
that's
there
true.
You go.
In 2 different places.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know, Matt. Give us something else. You got a chunk of wood in here we can look at. Give us a little show and tell for.
What do you want to look at?
We got about 10 minutes to go here.
Yeah, I showed you my crotch already.
Yeah, that's enough of that.
Yep, we're done. I made my long crotch joke. I don't know. Here's some curly maple.
Got some cool bowl blanks over there too.
I have a lot of bowl blanks because turning green is fun, but turning dry is not as much fun.
No, nowhere near as much.
So I have like a bajillion rough turn bowls because I've turned them all green. I've been sitting here like 5 years.
That's why I turn my green wood start to finish. I don't. My friend Paul does the set it aside and let it dry thing. I don't have that kind of patience. So.
Do you want to take one home with you?
Sure.
Maybe I should become a bowl.
Sure.
Someday.
Turn it into a bowl when it grows up.
Yeah.
Cherry, I think, here.
That one's cherry, yep.
It's a big chunk.
What's that one?
Kind of light. It could be elm, maybe.
It is not elm.
I don't know.
It is butternut.
You know, all right. Of course, I'm going to say this, but I was going to say that, but it felt a little bit too heavy to be butternut.
It's got a thick bottom.
Who among us doesn't? A question did roll in here. Any advice for harvesting turning blanks, mainly for bowls?
Like finding them?
I think like how to deal with it, I think, is maybe the question. So.
Oh yeah, that's the easy part, I guess. I don't know. Finding them is pretty easy too, because like all you need is firewood rounds for turning, which is nice. They're always in abundance. But if you're gonna turn them that day, honestly, I just cut them right in half, right through the pith, with the bark on, and then I bandsaw them to a round, and I throw them in the lathe, and I just shape them right there, then and there, instead of trying to like. You cut through the pith, then you cut the bark side off, and then you trim the other bark. I just do it on the lathe because it's all right there. It's easy.
Yeah.
If you want to like process for like storage, then you want to like make your two facing cuts, just like cutting like a slab on the sawmill. Take the bark off, wax it, and set it aside. That's what I would normally do.
So I'm a lot lazier than Matt. And I tend to come back from the compost yard with more stuff than I went.
There you go.
I take brush and I come back with logs. So my deal is I'll take a log and get it sort of close to what I think I might want it to be as a bowl. And then I wrap it in stretch film. I get 18-inch stretch film that I order from Amazon because they sell everything. And I used to dip stuff in wax, and I had a huge bin full of sealer, and I'd put a screw eye in the blank, and I would dip it, and then I would hang it on a rack.
Just like that's pretty serious.
Yep. And I find stretch film way easier. So I'll moisture meter it, and then wrap it in stretch film, and then I write on the stretch film what the moisture content was the day I did that, and what the species was, and then I just have this museum. It looks like spiders got in there and wrapped all my stuff in little catacombs of stretch film. But I've had stuff, this maple bowl I turned a couple months ago was stretched filmed for 3 years, and one of the things that was cool is it looked like this when it got wrapped, but there must have been stuff in there, and it spalted at the time it was stored. So it became a beautiful piece of wood. So it's like not even really close to looking like a bowl blank at that point. It really just still looks like a log. And then I just leave them sit that way.
I like that. Lazy, I like that. Very good.
Oh, and somebody asked, is the stuff that you build for you or for customers?
Pretty much everything ends up in the house. Our house. I have like a museum in there.
All right. Time for a haircut, Russ says. For you, not for me.
Crazy? I have no body fat. I gotta
Scott
keep the heat
says,
in.
are we drinking vodka or mineral spirits? Water, because we're doing woodworking sort of. Where is Matt located? He's in Minnesota, a suburb of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Tell us more about the things he builds. You want to jump on that a little bit?
We want to know. I
don't know. Do you have
a
a type of furniture you like best, or you'll do anything?
I really enjoy doing period pieces every now and then because I find it to be challenging and it really just opens your eyes to, I guess, like really good building practices, and to me at least it just has a good challenging aspect to it, which helps me grow as like an actual woodworker, which I really enjoy that part. As far as like things that I'll design myself, my things tend to be more like, I guess, I don't know, contemporary-ish vibe, some curves, things here and there, maybe a little shaker influence, things like that. But with my stuff I do, I just try to like bring my own like weird wood stuff into the project. So like my period pieces have a piece of wood with knots and cracks in it, which you would normally never see.
Which you wouldn't, yeah.
Which is very taboo.
Any furniture recommendations for Pecan? I cut a log and it is dried, but maybe too punky because it's really light. Gonna try a piece as a bowl blank as well. I don't think I mean, I don't think you have to pick a type of furniture for which you would use pecan. I think if you want to make something, try the pecan. It's pretty similar to this butternut, right? Characteristically.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't have it here. That's kind of the disadvantage of cutting your own stuff. It doesn't grow here. I don't have it. I'd love to have some. Someone bring me a pecan log.
And then somebody else says, is a pecan tree, I have a pecan tree, is it a good wood for woodworking? So we don't really know. But
it is. I mean, I've seen people use it.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
I'm reasonably sure it's similar to butternut characteristically.
I had a piece of it somewhere. Someone sent me a turning blank at some point in my life.
How about, while you're looking, is box elder worth sawing into lumber, and what would you use it for? Fellow Minnesotan, and it's a tree that grows like a weed, that's true.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, so box elder does grow like a weed and is very weed-like. One of its redeeming characteristics is the wood it's in the maple family. It's about as white as maple, but it gets these dramatic red stripes. But in my experience, I've got some bowls I've turned out of box elder where it looked like blood stains on there the day I turned it,
yeah.
And 5 years later they're pink. So it fades pretty, the red fades to pink pretty dramatically.
That's just faded a little bit. So the face of my Alfie table is box elder. It's nice wood. I don't know, I like it.
Yeah.
I cut a lot of it because the red is just nice and has some really interesting and striking grain patterns. It's just basically a soft maple with fun color.
Where I used to live, there were just a boatload of box elder trees, and somebody gave me an article about box elder, and it said, because it's in the maple family, some people tap it for syrup.
Oh.
I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. So I made taps out of wooden dowels and went out there and drilled a bunch of trees. So it turns out it's the lowest sugar content of any tree in the maple family. So I think I boiled 50 gallons of sap, from which I got like a tablespoon of maple syrup. But at the time, the kids were like,
well, was it good?
The kids were about as old as our kids. So it was a great experience. As sap, it tasted gross. It tasted like box elder smells. But as syrup, it was okay. It was all right. It was a cool.
It was okay.
It was a cool experience. I did it. I bet I did it every year for 5 or 7 years. So it was fun.
It's a lot of sap.
Any experience with Lee dovetail jigs? Yep. I'm not sure what you want to know. So yes, I've used them a lot. Can we see the rest of the shop as I'm looking at shop layout? Unfortunately, with the camera set up the way it is.
Try and spin it. I don't know.
We'll do that at the very end. Just in case we blow our setup.
That's probably a good idea. I can see you unplugging it by accident.
Yeah. James says, I have a Wood Miser 35 hydraulic. Curious if a saw blade with a missing tooth or two can be salvaged.
I still run them. Yeah.
If the rest of it's sharp, let her buck.
If it's only 1 or 2 teeth, yeah, it's not even going to probably notice that.
Okay. Fred wants to know if you're making me pancakes.
That's in the morning.
Yeah. Somebody says, why resaw green wood? I would think resawing dry wood makes more sense. Great question for the miller in the family, which would be you.
Oh, you have a little mill.
Why do we cut stuff green instead of letting the logs dry?
The whole log? Or like a thick piece? Well, basically the answer is that it dries faster when it's thinner. And it dries more evenly, and you have a little more control over the drying process. So if you're going to use 4/4 and you have a piece that's like 9/4, it's going to dry like a lot faster, and it's going to dry with less stress, so you can kind of turn it around a little quicker. If you're resawing like those panels, I wouldn't want to saw this out of a tree. This would potato chip and go all over the place and be very hard to get to be flat.
So describe potato, your verb potato chip. Turn that into what happens here?
This would be not flat. It would be
like a mountain range.
It would be all mountain range. It would be twisted. It would do all kinds of weird stuff because it's only a 1/4 inch thick. As it's losing moisture, it's going to do all kinds of weird stuff. But as a thicker board, it has a lot more stability. So this started out as a piece that was 2 inches thick, and I cut I think three slices out of this, and then 3 slices out of another piece that was 2 inches thick. And because it was dried as one unit, it was a lot more stable. And you can see this thing, as goofy as it is.
It's really flat.
I resawed this 2 months ago, beginning of September.
That looks great. It's dead flat. Yeah, so it's just in general you want. I guess I'm a little thrown off by resaw, but you want to process, you want to turn logs into lumber as close as you can to the time when the tree got cut down while they're still green. Looking for a slow speed grinder. Do you like the Rikon?
Yeah, it's a lot better than the old one I had. So it's actually pretty well balanced. It works. You can't really bog it down. Good value too. I think it's like $100 when it's on sale. Maybe it's like $130 normal price.
Donnie says he's got plenty of pecan in Mississippi, mighty Mississippi.
Come on up.
Darren is asking, how long do you think it would take to mill a 12-inch by 10-foot log with a chainsaw mill? 4/4 stock, it'd be less than an hour. A tank of gas, 1 tank of gas. I was using, my mill uses a Husqvarna 385 chainsaw, which is pretty horsey. Got pretty good snap. Although that saw yours.
The 090?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big boy.
137.
After Hurricane Michael, there are several magnolia trees down. Are they good for bowls? I think it's pretty inside, right?
I've seen it a couple times. It looks pretty amazing. There's some good color in there.
All right. Well, we have hit 8:01, so you're on overtime.
I made it.
You're getting paid double now.
Oh, good.
Let's. Somebody asked about just a quick look at your shop. Here's what I think I will do: is you handle the camera.
I gotta do that.
And I'm going to gaff the wire so that we don't disconnect. And other than that, we're going to shut down here. So again, thanks to Type On, thanks to Matt for hosting here and letting me come out and see his shop. If you've not already, go down below the chat area and you can download some free plans so you can run out to the shop and make gifts as soon as we're done here. Let's see, a couple things coming up. If you're in the Minneapolis area, I'm teaching at Acme Tool in Plymouth November 30th and December 1st, 2 days back to back. There is a meetup in the Minneapolis area at Matt Collins' place on November 17th, starting at 3:30. You can look up Matthew Collins Designs on Instagram and find him if you're interested in going to that meetup. And the other thing I was going to mention is Rockler. This Saturday is doing a pen turning for veterans event. I'm going to be going to the Minnetonka Rockler store to help out there. If you're interested in being involved with this, again, it's every Rockler store in the country is doing this on Saturday, November 10th. But check with your local store. Don't just show up. I believe that there was sign up needing to be done in advance in order to be involved, but I'm not 100% sure. So either check with the store online or call the store to see what's going on. All right, I'm ready to bug out. Matt is going to give us a little 360 tour of the shop here. I'm just going to watch the cable so we don't disconnect. All right, we're pointing to the workbench end of the shop.
What should we turn, clockwise or counterclockwise? This way?
Northern hemisphere, so I would do clockwise. Yeah, it should just pivot on that without, I think.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Here, you can do this so you can see what you're looking at.
Okay, this is going to be really... here's a good idea. Go to my YouTube channel, check out my shop tour.
There you go.
So behind all this is my jointer and some stuff over there. This right here is the planer. And that's the scrap in the table saw area. There's my bandsaw. Spin it around here.
There's Matt.
There's me.
There's the piece of furniture we've been talking about.
Yep, there's a sideboard right there.
The cyborg.
The cyborg. Drill press mortars are sharpening stuff. There's a tool cabinet. And we're back to the beginning.
There we are. 360 shop tour.
Just like that.
All right, folks. Thanks very much for watching. And we'll see you the second Thursday in December back at my shop. See ya.